I want to talk to you guys briefly about hotkeys, uh, why to hotkey things, and then how to do it. The why is pretty straightforward. It's probably the biggest productivity gain that you can have while using software. Like, as far as I can think of, your speed is going to increase by doing this more than any other thing. So it's really important that you understand your tools, what you're going to be using, and then as much as you can, make shortcuts to accessing them. So in ZBrush, there are already a lot of hotkeys by default, which I encourage you to learn. Same with whatever other 3D program or Photoshop, any of the programs you use. If you're doing repetitive tasks or selecting a lot of tools, find a way to hotkey it. So in ZBrush, thankfully, it's relatively easy. One of the easiest programs I know of to set your hotkeys in. To give an example, right, we'll start with something like a brush. Now, brushes by default actually have a pretty decent hotkey system, which you see it's basically the first letter of their name, and if you press, so in this case I'll press C, and now it's highlighting all these different brushes, and there's letters next to each of them. And if I press the corresponding letter, like in this case L, it's going to select clay. So really quickly we could press B, C, and then L. And when you memorize a bunch of those, it's pretty quick to navigate around this. The benefit being, okay, I know that I'm looking for a certain brush that's a move, but this is a lot to look at, so let me press M, and then it's a lot easier to see. However, I kind of like it a little quicker than that too. I don't want to have to press 3 things each time. So how do we set a hotkey for that then? So in this case, maybe I want to use clay, and I want clay to be a button. So to do that, we can hold Control Alt and click it, and then if you look up in the top corner, it says press any key combination to assign custom hotkey, or you could cancel it by pressing Escape or using the mouse button. Otherwise, press Delete to remove whatever assignment was already there. So maybe I want clay to be 1, so I can press 1. It's already using a different hotkey from ones that I've preloaded, but I'm going to hit OK here. And so now I'll select just a different brush, let's say crumple in this case. And I don't even know what crumple does, but we can see we have it up here. Now if I press 1, immediately I am at clay. And so go through and find whatever brushes that you see yourself using a lot. So another case would be like standard. So I'll press S to find it, Control Alt click, and now maybe I'll do standard to be 2. And now when I press 2, well, I had inflate already there, but you get the idea, is that you could switch between these things very easily. And I have a bunch already hotkeyed throughout my keyboard. And so I could go through these really quickly without ever having to go to this menu. And so I encourage you, make the hotkeys for those kind of things. There's a lot of hotkeys already available. For instance, symmetry, I believe, uses X. And symmetry is really handy to have around all the time. So by tapping X, and you can see the hotkey listed right next to the name on the tooltip to turn that on and off. I have another one, which is solo mode. So if we add another object here, I'll move it around. Solo mode will hide everything else. And so I have that personally on S, and it makes it really easy for me to work on something and not have to worry about manually toggling the eyeballs here on the side in order to only be viewing that one thing. And there's other ones that are super useful too. Spacebar I use a lot, which is kind of like a handy multi-tool. Shift F for seeing your frames. And then a couple important ones like lazy mouse, which you can activate by, for instance, pressing L. And you could edit those, of course, in your stroke menu under lazy mouse. But to be able to toggle it, that way if you have it on, now you know how to turn it off really easily without having to dig through menus. One that a lot of people are not necessarily aware of because it's still kind of a new tool is this kind of move gizmo. you could actually go back and forth between the transpose tool, which was an older form of movement in ZBrush, but still very unique and handy, is the Y button. So if you press Y, you switch to transpose tool. And you'll notice it up here in the menu. That's what the icon looks like. But it's great to know how to make those changes easily. Just like P for perspective, going back and forth, that kind of thing. So learn the shortcuts that ZBrush has, and then make your own. Make a bunch of them. Anytime you catch yourself doing something repetitive, if you can hotkey it. Definitely all your brushes and commands like that. It's going to save you a load of time.